Boom, and we're live. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. All right, so tonight I have a little beef with good old GitHub. So if you guys have been paying attention, and especially if you're in the Web3 space, and you guys all know about that specific protocol that I can't say the name of, that had a specific action be enacted upon it. This action has a word that I can't say either, or that I don't feel comfortable saying. Read some stuff last night, and the amount of words that I continuously say on the show that I shouldn't say. Well, I didn't know, right? I mean, I kind of have an idea of what is a no-no word and what is not a no-no word, but apparently it is a lot more important than I had expected. So I'm going to start tonight. We'll use tonight as kind of like a trial run to see how many no words I can not say and just replace them with something else. But there was some code on GitHub, hosted on GitHub's platform, that was considered to be open source, and GitHub being the studious, prestigious Git repository that I guess, I mean, well, I don't guess. I can show you guys tonight how they kind of are like doing some kind of, I guess you could say, flexing and or doing things that doing actions that signal virtue, proclaiming how much they like love and want to protect open source software. But in retrospect, looking back to some things that they've also done very recently, I'm not so sure if that's the case anymore. So kind of have a little bit of a beef, and it's not GitHub, it's nothing personal, it ain't nothing personal, but something I just want to talk to you guys about and just kind of like let it be known, because quite frankly, I think right now in the year 2022, I think the last couple of years, a lot of things are kind of the opposite of what they're being told that they are. I think that's couldn't be any more obvious than it has ever been in my entire life. Although to me, if I am being honest with you guys, a lot of stuff has kind of always been obvious to me, and later on down the long run, it's just been like, wow, so it was like that. And people told me I was crazy for that. So let's talk into that. Let me get into more specifics without trying to actually say some bad words. And yeah, Max Anitas says, but I give GitHub all my precious code. And we all do, my friend. We all do, especially if you use GitHub Copilot. Basically, it in exchange for giving you its magical prowess, it combs through and reads through all the code that you're writing. And then also, I think that it definitely looks through your repos, right? I think that's one of the stipulations that you have to check. I don't remember. It couldn't be. To be honest, I don't remember if that's like one of the things that you could either check or uncheck. But I'm pretty sure part of that was like, hey, you're using this thing, we're going to read your code and let other people use your code, or just intertwine your code in our quote unquote AI. Although it's not real AI. Why would they lie to you? Well, it's a good question. Nobody lies, right? Definitely not humans either. My code, says Cootie Moose in the Hoose. What up, Harry? Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend. So, all right. First and foremost, my friends, allow me to share this lovely, distinguished article that I came across today on a good old programming news site. And, if I'm being honest with you, there's nothing really cool in here. I just want to show this to you guys to kind of like prove a point. Okay. So if we take a look at this, guys, it says GitHub moves to guard open source against supply. Yeah, that's another one of those words. That is another one of those words that I'm not supposed to say. Okay. Let's try that again. GitHub moves to guard open source, and they're obviously talking about open source software, guard open source against attacks of chains that involve the SUPPLY, or the issuance of goods. I think you guys know what I mean by that. Okay. Bolasu says, Copilot trains off private code confirmed. It took some code from some commercial game repos. I forgot which ones. Okay. Yeah. Dude, no surprise, right? No surprise. And like, to be fair, it's GitHub already has access to see that stuff, right? So like imagine if one of you guys were like a dev at GitHub, you were doing work for GitHub or something, and you have at the very least you probably have read access to something in some kind of probably almost all private repos if you really want to. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I've been a dev at many places, and I've definitely had read access to some things that it's not supposed to be public knowledge, right? But as a developer, you kind of need to have that read access, especially if you have to fix bugs and develop code in that. So, understandable, right? Resource linka. Resource links instead of chains. Resource. Against supply resource links. Okay. Supply resource links. Okay. I like that. We'll try that. Supply resource links. Okay. And to not get the nitty gritty of this, guys, the the first sentence right there, it uses a word from that country that I'm also not supposed to say. So that country over there had some hackers. And if you guys remember, and I believe they actually talked about this further on in the article. Let me see if I control F and I look for ice cream man. Okay, here we go. So this part right here, this is I'll tell this part to you guys, and I'll kind of give you a broader gist of what the article is talking about. So it says by offering SigStore, and that's what this article is about, this thing called SigStore, to package managers, there's much more transparency at every stage of software's journey. And SigStore tools help developers manage cryptographic checks and requirements as software moves through the, what are we calling it, Sue? The resource links. As software moves through the resource links. Resource links. Lorik says that many people are shocked to hear that these integrity checks aren't already in place. That's so much of the open source ecosystem has been relying on blind trust for so long. You mean like, if you use kind of software and it's open source that like if you don't really use something that's credible and you don't like lookintoit.com. I don't even know what that website is. Don't go to that website. Seriously, that was just a joke. I really don't know what that is. If you guys go to that website and something happens to you, sorry about you. And then it talks about, here we go, Ice Cream Man in May 2021, the Biden White House issued an executive order that specifically addressed software supply chain security. I said the SUPPLY chain thing again. Wasn't supposed to say that. All right. So basically, guys, what GitHub is doing here is they're kind of like allowing, they're moving to guard against open source. They're using to guard open source against resource links attacks. Okay. Specifically, they're talking about NPM. And if anybody's ever used Node or NPM, Node Package Manager, and you've just like you just installed some kind of random NPM package that like literally any of us could have built, which that's what open source is, right? What we saw, apparently, I didn't see this, although I did hear some stuff about it. People were like downloading these compiled versions of these specific packages to use to basically like, they're probably like using some other kind of like external library or something that they're going to be able to get some functionality to help make their programming lives better or make their programming for the thing they're doing easier and faster. And when they're downloading that compiled version of it, there was some malicious stuff embedded in it that kind of gave like security breaches. So, I guess one solution to that would have been to better vet where you're downloading your open source software from. Now, since NPM and Node is something that a lot of people use, and you can just go to Google and Google search, hey, I need some kind of like some resource that does all this already. So, for example, guys, one that I've used most recently was, I believe it's called, let me actually look this up so I'm telling you guys the truth. Node Bitcoin Satoshi. I think it's in NPM install Satoshi Bitcoin. And it was just an easy way. I could have done the math myself, okay? Could have done the math myself. Being a typical lazy programmer here, trying to import some functionality that someone else wrote to translate sats into Bitcoin and vice versa for transactions. And I didn't really like look into like the last time anybody did any kind of like, upkeep on that thing. I just did it, okay? I just did it. And that's something that's quite frequent, right? Me personally, I don't think there's any information that any one of these hackers from that country over there in the east, close to that country that's really far in the east, but the one that's right next to that one. I don't think they have anything they want to find for me. So basically they're doing this, guys. What it seems to me is like they, and this could be interpreted several different ways, but they're like, yeah, we love open source so much over here at GitHub. We love open source so much that we're going to do things to protect it by giving it a stamp of approval. And you won't be able to use that open source software. It won't be able to be hosted on GitHub unless it's given this stamp of approval. So one could argue that this kind of itself goes against exactly what open source software is for. Yeah, obviously you can download some malicious software. Maybe, just maybe, instead of allowing one specific entity to kind of tell everybody what is given the stamp of approval or not, maybe we could take the onus back in our hands and do a better job. Kind of like, we would do if we were trying to protect our houses at nighttime by locking our own doors or using self-defense tools or having self-defense tools where if that, that happens, then you'd be okay. But the whole point of me telling you guys about this right here isn't because that this actually is potentially could be looked at as something that kind of goes against open source. And by the way, I could probably do a whole nother stream on this, but there is really no such thing as open source, at least not in the open source way that you all and myself think of it as. It's actually what we think of as open source is actually something very different, and it should be termed differently because the truth is most open source things are not open source. Anyway, different topic for a different stream. The whole point of me telling you guys this is like, hey, their GitHub is like basically signaling something virtuous that they're doing to protect open source. Okay. So with that being said, would you guys say that GitHub is or is not an advocate of open source software? Kind of like they've always claimed to be, kind of basically like what the platform was intended to do, since we all host our source code there, right? Conqueror says, how long would it take for you to get a remote coding job that pays you around 30 to 50K a year? 30 to 50K a year, you wouldn't be getting that as a remote coding job. It would be like the lowest somebody I've seen has gotten a remote coding job in this year was 65K, and from the group, and they probably oh boy, they just took the first thing that I'm talking to you, I'm talking about you. Took the first job they could, but they're a very young person and they were kind of impatient. They didn't want to wait anymore. 30 to 50K would not be for a coding job. It would be for like something a little bit like lower in the spectrum. But how long would it take if you were talking about a coding job? Man, I mean, we've seen people do it in 2 months. Mr. Tom G, still the fastest person to do it. I think he's the fastest person to do it. But it's usually after that 6-month mark. And usually what I tell people is 6 to 18 months. So anywhere between 6 to 18 months, if you have that amount of time, it is doable. If you're looking to do it shorter than that, like I said, it's possible, but missed the Tom Graff, the guy who did it in 2 months. He is a freak of nature. So most people you're not Tom Graff. I mean, you might be. You might actually be Tom Graff pretending to be someone else, but you're probably not. And he was he's a freak. All right, he's a freak, but it is possible, and it also that goes the same way in the other direction. It's also possible to take longer too. Bullsu says resource instead of supply, and link instead of rhymes with Kane. Ah, yes, resource link, chain link. Max says, I know a senior project manager who works at GitHub. Sorry for the delayed response, Max. In that case, yes, hail GitHub. Yes, distinguished GitHub. Yes, it's the greatest of all. Yes. Ask him what they ask him how they really feel. Ask them how they really feel, Max. Let me know. So, with that in mind, my friends, I just showed you guys, I would now like to bring your attention to yet another article. Now, this one is not from today. However, this is from very recent times. And I think most of you guys on my channel, I haven't made a stream about this yet. And the stream is not about this per se. But most of you guys probably know what's been going on with this, okay? All right. I have to use my words wisely here again. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. And the title of the article is a quote from a developer, and it says, "It doesn't change anything." Says, how do I reword this? Hurricane money after code disappears from GitHub. So they're saying that hurricane money is the one that is saying this quote here. It doesn't change anything after code disappears from GitHub. So, man, there is a lot that I could talk about this, and I don't want to make this stream oriented towards that. Okay, I should do either a stream. I probably should do a scripted recorded video about this, in all honesty, because I have to be careful talking about this. Like I told you guys, I read some stuff last night, and it was like, yeah, you shouldn't be saying like a lot of the stuff that you say. So I'm gonna have to try to be careful if I were to do this live. But anyway, I don't want to make the stream about that, okay? But this is something that needs to be noted to assert my argument that I'm trying to make. And perhaps, you know what, maybe I won't say that this is an argument I'm trying to make. Maybe it's a thesis that I'm trying to make here. All right, so it says a source code from cryptocurrency privacy, MIXER, hurricane money. Now, keep in mind, that's not what it actually says, and that's not what I'm saying. You read between the lines here. Hurricane money has been removed from GitHub, prompting outcry from privacy and these two words I also can't say. We'll say open speaking advocates. Okay. Open speaking advocates. All right, article by Tim Hockey. Here you can see they have a nice little logo for Hurricane Money, a non-custodial, anonymous transactions on Ethereum. You guys saw the pseudo stream I did with Yin the other night on Saturday, actually, about Ethereum, and this was mentioned there. So, all right, so the source code for crypto transaction, MIXER, Tornado Money, has disappeared from GitHub. And this is the part that really gets me, guys. Barely 24 hours after the U.S. department that has to do with TREASURY added this privacy tool to its sanctions list. So within under 24 hours of this thing being added to a sanction list, its code was, GitHub was very, very fast to remove it. One thing I want to note, how does one sanction a protocol? That's what I'm very, very curious about. If you guys know how an entity does indeed sanction a protocol, because usually these sanctions are meant for like people, governmental agencies, either a singular fleshy body with a brain and or some kind of conglomerate or group of fleshy bodies, like an Eastern country that is not all the way to the east, but it's almost all the way to the east. In fact, it's just one over to the west of the eastmost country, if you know what I'm talking about, like that. And this just GitHub just made it disappear. It's gone. The code was there, and now it's not, right? So much for open source, eh? So since yesterday, the Treasury Department has banned American citizens from using Hurricane or transacting with several Ethereum addresses linked to the Hurricane Money community. Now, if you guys knew, and like I said, I'm not going to go into the depth of this particular on this stream, but if you guys knew what they were actually labeling as the Hurricane Money community, legally at this point, basically you could be put under trial for you can get into some. I'll put it to you this way: from my understanding, you can get into some serious trouble up to like 30 years in jail. If one of your wallets that you happen to own had some kind of associated transaction, even if it was just like connecting your wallet to this thing, or even more scarily, if it was not done with any of your knowledge. So one thing to note, funny, somebody that's been on crypto Twitter has been sending a bunch of random addresses, 0.1 ETH from said mixer. And he's been sending it to a lot of like famous people and just basically like higher profile cryptocurrency addresses where people know their public address, right? So I wonder if all those people are going to have some trouble, and you're going to have to be like, hey, is this 0.1 ETH being sent to this person? Is that them interacting with this this no protocol? Because again, open source no protocol, right? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be facetious here because, in my opinion, this is just like really dumb. Especially since we have a history in the United States of this not holding up in court, and also code being established as speech. And also, we know how the rules are about FREE speech. But anyway, like I said, that's a different stream. Okay, back to the point, Josh. Back to the point. Focus here. So this thing was sanctioned, and then GitHub got rid of its code immediately, right? GitHub. Now, remember the other article I was showing you guys not too long ago about how GitHub was like, we care so much about open source software that we're going to protect. We protect, we attack. We definitely fight back. We're GitHub. And they care so much about open source code that they're going to protect it, even though what they were doing to protect it was a little kind of sus. And meanwhile, right before that, this happened, right? So on the other end, we're seeing the opposite actions from GitHub. We're seeing them do something kind of, I would say, in the negative, not being for open source, not being for basically everything that is entailed in open source software. And that's, again, I will do a different video about that, okay? So if you're mad at me, I apologize. In the official announcement, the Treasury said these measures were taken because criminals had used the service to, quote, launder more than $7 billion worth of virtual currency since its creation in 2019. I would have to say that out of personal opinion, and I think they're saying that the people from the Korean country that is north, that they use this to escape, basically stay under the radar. I would say that the average person that uses this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I'm going to say that the average person that uses this just somebody who just wants a little bit extra privacy, not somebody who has anything that they're laundering or doing anything malicious. Does that mean that hackers and malicious people don't use it? Of course, that's not what that means. Kind of like the same person that is going to go pay for gas at a gas station with $1 is most likely just an average person who just wants to buy gas. And does that mean that everybody that's gone to the gas station and paid for their gas in cash has not laundered that money or done something malicious to earn it? No, right? Equal ends the spectrum here, right? So let us return to this. It also said criminals laundered 7.8 million stolen in last week's Nomad Bridge hack through Hurricane. We won't say that. Several hours after the announcement, reports emerged that GitHub, the code platform that hosted Hurricane Money, don't say it, Josh. Don't say it. Hurricane Money's code has also taken action. Hurricane Money founder Roman Smeemanov tweeted that his GitHub account has been suspended shortly after government's blacklist has been announced. And look, he's someone who he supports Current Thing. Look at that. He's got Current Thing in his look at that. Guys, this just goes to show you, even if you support Current Thing, you could also be having 25 good boy tokens deducted from your wallet. My GitHub account was just suspended. Is writing an open source code illegal now? That is a good question. We already know that it's not illegal because we've had the United States legal history of establishing that. If you guys want to debate me on that, you guys should go check out good old Andrew Esquire's YouTube channel. I don't know if Andrew has done a stream about this, but he or a show about this, but he should. He most certainly should. But he will tell you that that is true. It's a fact. Okay, it's a fact. The federal government's quick suppression of crypto privacy tools prompted a general outcry from several industry leaders. Well, of course it's going to, who cited the 1996 federal court. Here we go. Court case Bernstein versus U.S., which established source code as speech protected by the I can't say this word, guys. First Amendment. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Maxine says typists make 30 to 50K. Good point. And they don't even code. Very true. Hello. When evacuating from an actual hurricane, the only gas stations that had fuel literally only took cash. That's very true. Very, very true. I remember when Katrina was going down, like pretty much all of like the telecom systems were out, and like all of like the general, I won't say all of Southeast, but at least all of South Louisiana, South and well, mid Louisiana too, South and mid Mississippi, in that area. So everything had to be paid in cash. I will tell him to suggest that. Thank you. I would call him, but I would call him and tell him myself, or give him a text. But I have abused my questionnaire abilities. I've ran out of questions that I can ask him so far in 2022. So I'm going to take him out to dinner next time. I'm going to ask him something about it. But in all seriousness, though, he will most certainly, Andrew will most certainly rain hammer down on this, because I think this is a pretty like obvious thing. Like what we're seeing the same things we've seen, guys, repeatedly. Them basically telling us, hey, we're gonna basically do something that goes against the Constitution, and we're gonna enforce this thing. And we repeatedly see later on down the road, hey, you weren't supposed to do that. That's bad speak. No, they're actually getting no-no'd. But God, man, oh man, I'm trying not to be Doomer Josh right now. Trying not to be Doomer Josh, just living in a good old clown world that makes absolutely no sense anymore. And yeah, back onto this, guys. Back onto this. Here's Kurt Opschel. So after OFAC added Hurricane Money. Man, if I click this, can you stop it up a new window? Hurricane Money Mixer smart contract to the specific. Dude, come on. I know you guys can't see it opening the new windows, but I have like 18 Twitter tabs open. Specifically designated national list. Its source code disappeared from GitHub. Source code is speech, and that's a quote, and that's from Bernstein versus the U.S. 1996. So while Hurricane's code is functional, mixing ETH transactions so they are harder to trace, publishing the code on its own is protected speech, even if that code can be used unlawfully. And here is a picture. You guys can't see this picture unless we go to that tweet there, but I think you guys kind of get the gist. Smart contract developer Patrick Collins says that the move was, quote, much worse than just sanctioning a website, and announced he's, quote, paging lawyers. Of course they're going to. What does this guy say? It's getting much worse. Hurricane Money's GitHub accounts and code base has been entirely moved. This is much worse than just sanctioning a website. Code is speech. So we are potentially violating the First Amendment. Not potentially. Not potentially, guys. Not potentially. Decrypt asks Hurricane Money what the code's removal from GitHub means for the privacy tool. Representative confirmed that the code has been removed from GitHub itself, but replied that the smart contracts are on the Ethereum blockchain. It doesn't change anything for Hurricane Money's contracts. And guys, if you heard the backsplash of water in the back of my throat while I was opening my mouth up, I basically yawned and burped at the same time. So I will have to apologize. You'll have to excuse me. But all right, this is a juicy thing to talk about right here. Okay, so this protocol, let me actually take another step back. Let me take one step back further. If you guys did see the stream that I've done on Saturday with Yen, where we showed the exorbitantly large amounts of ETH nodes and validators that are running off of AWS or Infura, it's a vast majority, right? So take that into consideration. If this Web3 thing, okay, if there is a centralized entity that is really going to be holding a majority of control of Web3, at the very least, they can shut things down on the front end. Okay, on the front end. Now, with that being said, most people like use MetaMask. Most people use like a Mac or a Windows and are going to be using like a regular internet connection. And they go to these sites, and all these centralized entities that have the power to do so are going to say no and turn it off. Most regular people are not going to have access to this. Okay, anybody can go and create, or just anybody can just go and do some callbacks to any of these contracts in Solidity and accomplish a desired goal. They could even make a new contract and just deploy it specifically for themselves to interact with these things. There's also several different ways to bypass things on the front end, i.e., like you go somewhere else in the world, you connect to a different node or a different validator directly, or you just make a new version of the front end and have it like hooked up to the back end, and then just hope that version of the front end doesn't get regulated to shit. If that was the case, if you were to do that, in my opinion, that would probably be best to like host that off of a .onion site. But anyway, those contracts are indeed stored on the blockchain forever, the Ethereum blockchain. So they say. Now, if in the past year and a half, you guys have wondered why I have been a non-self-proclaimed, but other people have told me that I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. This is why, okay? We've already seen Ethereum just change their monetary policy. In fact, you know what? Let's throw that whole argument about comparing Ethereum's monetary policy to the Federal Reserve. Let's just take that out the window. And let's just talk about open source, and at least with the ability to be a trustworthy, immutable, so non-changeable ledger, which is a blockchain, which in Ethereum's case, this blockchain has the ability to contain more than just transactions. It has the ability to contain the code for smart contracts, hence why it's on the blockchain forever, bro. Well, you guys know Ethereum Classic, right? ETC. And then we have the current Ethereum, right? Now, how did Ethereum Classic become Ethereum Classic? And how did current Ethereum become current Ethereum? Well, there was an incident that didn't happen very long ago. It depends on your time horizon, but some considered this a while ago. Some could consider this more recently because it was within at least a 10-year time frame. And something happened on the Ethereum blockchain. Someone was able to take advantage of something and was able to make an exorbitant large amount. At the time, it wasn't that much money. It was like $31 million, I think. Money's not that important, though. In this instance, the importance is what did they do about that? Well, we have a single person who is kind of considered like the Pope of Ethereum, and that is Vitalik Buterin. And he made kind of a unanimous decision to just hard fork the blockchain back and starting it back to back before the block that had this data already, embedded inside of it, and to make it as if, hey, this little thing never happened. And that hard fork is how Ethereum became Ethereum today. And then ETH Classic, guys, is basically the continuation of that original chain. So can they just go back in time? If we have a singular person who wants to make those decisions, people are going to listen to them. Can they just go back in time and just say, hey, we're going to start this blockchain back over again before this code is even deployed on it? Can they remove it? I don't know so much about that part, although there is probably some things that they could do to at least prevent people from using that. But anyway, it's a little questionable. It's not as a credible immutable ledger as something like Bitcoin. Okay. Now, with that being said, you can't really develop anything on top of Bitcoin. You can, but again, that's not the scope of this video. It's not as easy to do it, and it's also not as easily accessible, and it's also not as easily accessible to the developers themselves. And thus, I'm a developer. I've done plenty of projects on Ethereum. I'm working on 2 on the Ethereum blockchain right now. None of these projects I'm expecting to have like, hey, 20,000 years down the road, it's all never going to change, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And especially another concern with that is the ETH 2.0 upgrade. That's also an item of concern. But again, I don't think that's in the scope of this video. So with that being said, what does that have to do with this and GitHub and being open source? Sometimes, guys, sometimes, my friends, I'll put it to you like this. Sometimes things are not always 100% as they seem. Okay? I think a lot of us know that now in the last couple of years. For like the 8th time on the stream, I'll reiterate that again. I think a lot of us can see that now more than ever. But I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say that GitHub is going to be is doing the same thing that every other sort of larger company or like well-known entity, any kind of like organization, code, non-code, just regular organization, a building, a governmental agency, whatever. They're gonna say to everybody, hey, we stand for these core and common beliefs that you all stand for. We do. So much so that we're gonna go out of our way to fight for them for you, except when it goes against our specific agenda and or the agenda of the people who are above us. And then in that case, we'll just kind of throw our core values and our belief sets out of the window just for these couple instances, though. But don't worry, you'll all forget about them in a week from now, in 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. You'll all forget that we actually didn't upstand and uphold our beliefs for these specific things because basically we were told to do so. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that's exactly what's happening. I won't go and explain whether or not these protocols are still, good or bad. I'm trying to remain like morally neutral on this, although I'm sure most of you guys know how I feel and how I stand on this. But at least in regards to like open source, I'm going to just say that I think that that would go against a lot of the core values and virtues that places like GitHub claim to stand for. Now, is that a good thing? No, not right now, at least, but in the future, guys, and like I said, for the 18th bazillionth time on the stream, we've all been seeing this happen over and over again. Not specifically this, but things just like this, right? Over and over again in the last couple of years. And have they been like good things per se? Well, maybe in the time, not really, right? But further along the line, what does a problem solver do? And since at the end of the day, guys, this is a channel about software engineering, partially, right? I am a software engineer, and being part of that entails being a problem solver. So someone who is a problem solver and solves problems for a living, what do problem solvers do when problems like these present themselves? Well, they think. They think of a way to fix the problem, and they solve it. So at the end of the day, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Maybe it will be something good after all. Mrs. Soy Mafia says, more people should have avocado toast. This will inspire more coders and authors, writers. Yes, the avocado toast. Yes. How ESD safe is your wallet? From Grandma Raised 2. How ESD safe? Is that like environmentally? Hold on, I gotta Google this. ESD. Is that like electronically? Is that one of the environmental? What you mean by that? My wallet adheres to all 700 of the environmental safety protocols. My wallet also supports current thing. Support.current thing equals true. Bernstein versus United States. Yeah, and there's a link right here for that specific court case. I believe that's been revisited several times. Again, I would have to ask Andrew about that. Necessity breeds invention. Yeah, it does. And that's kind of all the reason why this stuff happened in the first place, while these protocols have been created in the first place. I mean, if we go back literally to the Genesis block in Bitcoin, there's a message in there for everybody that basically says, hey, the reason this protocol has been created was because, well, the 2008 GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, right? So that being said, my friends, I hope you guys learned something from the stream. And, if you think that if you're for or against GitHub and, you have a personal opinion about it, you think that I'm wrong in what I'm saying, or you disagree with something, or, you'd like to challenge something that I'd say, or even if you feel the same, leave a comment below. Let me know how you guys feel about that. Developerdirection.com for all your learn to code needs. And as always, guys, that is it.